Spencer, a very surreal and extraordinary couple of months have passed since we last played a game here. We've heard bits and pieces from you on the official website and in the non-league paper. On a personal note, how are you and how have you coped with all the circumstances?
I'm great, thanks Dom. I mean, great to be back because we've had 3 sessions. We've only been back for just over a week, and obviously the priority is safety and everyone. And as you say, it's been quite surreal, and we just delighted to be back in today. It's the word I'm hearing from everyone is you've got to be fluid with what's going to happen, and completely agree. So just thankfully everyone we know around is well, and that's got to be the absolute priority.
And we're 2 weeks into pre-season now, with the league start date of Saturday the 19th of September to work towards. How's pre-season gone so far?
It's bizarre because we've had 2 weekly sessions with Just Fitness, and this is the first session we've come in on a pitch, and we did a 45-minute trials game, and then we've just done some more fitness work. Even with yesterday's news from the government, as far as they're not doing any of the periods, the trials with crowds, we just have to be so fluid and try and keep everyone together, but just with the priority of safety and see what happens. And we've not made it compulsory. People come in, the vast majority, nearly everyone is back at the moment, but so much can happen, and we're in the hands of the government and the authorities, and they've said potentially a September 19th start date, but I think with yesterday's news that now looks extremely unlikely, and because the leagues have made it very clear we can't start without fans. And as I've pointed out, I think there's a huge amount of other problems besides just bringing in the fans, and the priority has to be safety. The priority has to be not putting pressure on the NHS, and the obvious that no one wants to get sick, ill or worse. So we're all desperate to be back. We've really enjoyed today. There's a lot of smiling going along, which is great in this terrible situation, but there's a very long way to go, and we just have to follow what we're told.
And what are your thoughts on how non-league is dealing with the pandemic?
I think overall you've got to applaud everyone. They're doing their very best. It's a completely unknown scenario. I think the government's doing their very best. There's no right or wrongs. Everybody's trying to do their best. I think the football authorities are doing their best. The leagues are doing their best. The clubs are doing their best. But it's quite a scary situation, really. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of managers. Some of those managers were involved in the playoffs finals today, on a couple of them. And the amount of work and things that had to be done with testing and the safety. Players went in dressing rooms, showers, and then they sort of said, "Oh, you're going to start in 6 weeks," which sort of seemed totally bizarre, from going from so dramatic rules and regulations to, "Oh, we're just going to play you in 6 weeks with fans in." So I think there's a very long way to go. I think reality is hitting, and unfortunately last night's news from the government and comments this morning that, I think it's the chief medical officer's made some comment that it may be that we even have to go back to closing bars if we want the schools to open. So we're desperate to play football again, and I think clubs have a real responsibility and are loved by communities, and we want to play football, but we also have to look at the risks. Number one, the safety of the players, our supporters, our volunteers. I mean, you see the volunteers, the work they've been doing and how they will be looked after. I've made a big comment about travelling, and the functions on clubs are not open. We're not the only one, and you see today clubs starting to cancel pre-season friendlies. They're worried about their insurance, they're worried about how they get the players there safely, and I think there is a long way to go. There's lots of things that need to be dealt with, but I think overall, I think the authorities are doing the best they can, and I think it'll be a surprise about September the 19th now, with the latest news. The FA Cup, they're meant to be announcing the draw and which clubs are going to be in the earlier round, and we've got a 20% chance of being in that earlier round, which I think is September the 12th. So in theory we're playing in 6 weeks' time. Is that behind closed doors? There's so many questions, but we just have to be fluid and try and get the players' fitness up, keep everyone safe, and see where it leads us. But very long way to go, I think, in my opinion. And of course, if we start, do we finish with these lockdowns? And I think 4.5 million people locked down in the Manchester area. What happens then? But we shall see, and just hope everyone stays safe. Our supporters, fans, their families, their work colleagues. There's so many elements to it. And you do get to the point where you say, is it worth the risk for non-league football? And I'm certainly talking about sort of step 4, 3, 2, 1. For what we give back to communities and the players when we all desperately want to play, we can't have illness and this spreading and the pressure on the NHS and people's families being impacted. So fingers crossed, first and foremost, the country, the world comes up with a vaccine, and then we can all move forward.
Very well said. And on the football pitch, if we rewind back to the middle of March, Farnborough supporters were treated to arguably two of the best performances of the season, with back-to-back 4-0 home victories over Yate Town and Taunton Town. It's a shame we couldn't pick up where we left off, but what did you make of those standout results and the season as a whole?
Look, we're a really young team. We have to look at lots of young ex-pros that have been released. And I think we've been all season predominantly a very exciting, young, fresh side. And we put together a team that, on the front foot, was as good as any in the division, as Taunton found out. As an example, they're a very strong side. They're always right at the top there. Very well funded, experienced. And 4-0 didn't flatter us. So, of course, it's frustrating. And, you know, we were looking forward rather than backwards. It's very difficult. But everything changes now. You know, clubs that have got big time funders, and there's not many, and of course we're jealous, you know, they just offering contracts out and picking up players. But I think you see the vast majority of clubs are very quiet. They're signing players either just on non-contract and discreetly, because we just don't know what's going to happen. So we'd like to keep everyone. We've got a couple of players that are at other clubs at the moment that, you know, they're all ranting and raving. They've gone to the other clubs, but they haven't really yet them signed contracts or whatever. And, you know, there's all the stories that players are going to flood down because of the situations in League Two and the National League. So we want to keep the bulk of the players, and as you've seen at training, the vast majority of them here, or they would have been here. We've got a few missing today for different reasons. And as I said, we're not putting pressure on people. So we'd like to get them back. They're a fantastic group of players, and it was a real pleasure to have them around, and they developed through the season and play some fantastic, fast, fluid football. And yes, you did see a real buzz at the end of the season, but there were the glimpses of that throughout the season. And it's not easy. So we'd like to bring them back, but we shall see. Like everybody else, we've got to wait to see what happens. We're desperate to get back playing football. We're desperate to get back to life generally, but you know, when that will be, it will be. But first and foremost, I just wish everybody that they're safe and well, and you know, we'll move forward as and when we're allowed to.
And so far, departed players from last season's squad are defender Adam Bryce, striker Perry Coles and winger Reggie Young. He managed to get another year out of Reggie before his return to the National League South. He was the first name on the team sheet, so it'll be a big miss. Is it a case of keeping the core of last season's team and just bringing in some fresh faces?
Well, I'm not going to talk about individual players, but that fact you just said is not accurate. A player's gone when they've signed a contract. Perry left halfway through the season really last year. Got a lot of time for Perry, and he stepped down the levels, and you know, he's welcome back at a time. But you know, Perry wasn't here at the end of last season, nor was Adam Bryce, so they haven't left. Spoken to Adam during pre-season. Obviously had lots of details with Reggie. I said I'm not going to comment on players whether they've gone or they've not gone. All I'd say is we love Reggie Young at this club. You know, we're very keen for him to be with us when we start kicking a ball, and we'll see. But we wish him the luck. We don't stand in people's ways. So we've got the vast majority, we hope, of the squad, but we've not signed one player. We've not signed one player. No player has signed a league form, contrary to others, because we just think it's way too early. So, and we don't know what the situation is. If the club can't open and we have no functions, which is I think 70 to 80% of our income, and then you start talking about fans not being able to come in full levels, and will fans want to come back as far as safety? You know, and not just Farnborough, we're talking about in football generally. Will they be worried? None of us know the answers. Will more people come back and be excited because they've missed football for 4 months? So we just don't know. We don't know who's here. We don't know. All I say is we haven't lost another player, a player from last season that signed a contract at another club. Lots of players move around at this time of the year and they trial with people. We've got some trialists. We've got some exciting trialists that were here today. As usual, we've had plenty, and rather than take loads to the behind closed doors friendlies we've got organised starting next week, we're going to cut quite a few because we do have a fairly settled squad. We'd like them all to come back, but of course we're going to be budget controlled, and if the club doesn't open, then there's pretty much no money. Obviously there's been a situation with the academy as well, which the club has worked incredibly hard to try and resolve and move forward with that, as you've heard from Ben. So it's just incredibly difficult times to know what we've got and what we haven't got. So we don't want to commit to whether a player's left or not. Perry, as you know, has said he's gone to Bracknell, but he wasn't with us the second half of the season. Adam was injured and has massive work commitments. So, we'd love to have him back, but we shall see. There's so much still to happen, and at the moment, I think the priority should just be on everyone coming in today. Like, they weren't allowed to use the dressing rooms. Everything has been sterilised as best we can, and they brought their own water bottles, and we sterilised the taps. There's so much work, and the fantastic volunteers, what they've done around here to even get on today. So I think we've just got to wait and see what happens, and use that cliche word of fluidity that we're hearing from everybody, and rightfully so, and see where we are almost week by week.
And you've seen the constitution for our league with Blackfield and Langley dropping out from last season. I know it's early days, but how competitive are you expecting the league to be compared to last season?
Just following on from what I've said, don't want to go over again. I think it's almost impossible to say. I mean, Truro, fabulously backed by a very wealthy owner that owns Cornish Pirates. Good luck to them. We're jealous, signing players left, right and centre on contracts. Good for them, just jealous. Taunton signing everybody, but then you wonder how some of these clubs think they're going to pay for it if we don't have crowds in or functions. It's none of our business. I don't know. The truth is there's a lot of clubs that are saying very little like ourselves, because I think they're in the same boat as us. We just don't know. I'm hearing stories from certain clubs saying that they might look at the opt-out option. In American football, players are allowed to opt out of the season, and clubs are considering it. If they don't feel it's safe, then perhaps a club or more will start pulling out of the league and say, like today, certain pre-season friendlies say, we're not playing, we don't think it's safe. Farnborough is a regulated stadium, fantastic stadium. A lot of that will come down to the health and safety committees anyway, not the football league. If the health and safety say it's not safe because we can't afford to do all the things they want, then we won't be playing. And there are so many clubs that are in the same position. So I just literally, besides the very few that have, fantastic funding, I think the vast majority of us are sitting and waiting to see what happens. So the table could be upside down, in a lot of ways, and but I think that helps us in a way, because I'm not going to harp on about it, but we've not had we've always been right at the bottom end of the budget front, so we do know how to get players in. We've got great connections with clubs, and we've got a fantastic group from last year that we're going to hope to keep, and we'll see what happens, but far, far, far too early to tell about whether this club's going to do this or this club's going to do that, because I think anyone who says they know, except for the very, very few, they're guessing.
And of course everything's still up in the air at the moment, but is there anything you can reveal in the way of friendlies?
We've got, I think, I don't have in front of me, 4 away friendlies starting next Saturday. We're not going to say where they are, purely because I think, again, for health and safety, they're behind closed doors, they're all local, and we will play those friendlies. We've got 3 home friendlies provisionally booked for September against big size clubs that a lot of the fans will guess who they are, but again, we're not announcing yet. We don't know if fans are going to go in, we don't know if the season's going to get pushed back. The conference have now said they probably aren't playing until October, and that was before yesterday's announcement. We've just got to be fluid and wait to see what happens, and literally, as of yesterday, big changes yesterday with them cancelling letting people into games for trials, so not even 300 into the Crucible. So my view is you've almost either got to let everybody in and let the bars open and the functions open and let us travel in the normal way, or you don't. And at the moment it looks like the answer is you don't, and I think we have to support that, because nothing is worth people getting ill, sick, or sadly dying. We've got to keep real reality on this. I think ultimately, if as a world we look back, history looks back at this time, and we sadly, worst case, lose this next season and don't play, and we're nowhere near that. We want to play like everyone, and the world comes up with a vaccine, and we managed to deal with this horrific situation with health and obviously what that's doing to the world's economy, then I think we will have done very, very well. So it's important we don't rush, we don't have make it worse for us individually, our communities, and the NHS, the pressure we're putting on them, and we just have to go with what people say, but it's important that it's not just looked, oh, well, we're letting supporters in, off you go. Well, as I've touched on before, with things like away travel, who's cleaning kits, and we've got a fabulous new kit man who's come in today to take over from the wonderful Roger. And how do we do all these things? You know, when a ball goes into the stand here, are we having to disinfect that ball? Are we doing all those things? Are we not letting the players in the home dressing rooms because they're not big enough, the away dressing rooms? So many things to do, but look, I applaud what everyone's trying to do. We're all trying to do the best in completely unterritoried conditions, and we just got to stay safe, and we're desperate to play. We all want to play. I'm missing it like mad. We want to play. It was great just to have a bit of football today for 45 minutes. You know, I'm really looking forward to the pre-season friendlies, but in the same breath it might all be off again, so who knows. We're just try and keep smiling, tell everyone please stay safe, please look after yourselves, your friends, your family, your colleagues, and we'll see what happens.
And you touched upon it a few moments ago. A positive to come out of the club last month was the announcement of the newly launched Farnborough Football Academy and a new joint role for first team coach Ben Murray. How much are you looking forward to rekindling the relationship with the academy?
Well, we've always had a good connection. We've brought players through. You've got nothing better than CJ Fern. What a fantastic example of how you can come through the academy and be the first team captain for many, probably now hundreds of games. So, you know, Ben's a fantastic coach. Obviously the situation has come about in terrible circumstances. That's a bit of a nightmare for the club, but they're working so hard, the guys behind. I'm not really involved. We just said obviously we will look at the academy. We'll try and keep bringing people through as we've always done, and we hope he gets lots of response, because this is a fantastic setting, and we always say the academy lads can come in, the right ones can come and train with the first team. We want to have that progression. We want to be part of the community spirit, that we're bringing players through, local players in an ideal world. So, you know, we wish them all the very best. They're having to do it at absolutely incredibly short notice. They're only at the beginning point. I think it's a trials game coming up very, very shortly, and we just wish them all the very best in the new venture.
And finally, do you have a message for the supporters who chipped in with donations and season ticket sales to help the club through the last few months?
It's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, the club's got no income, to my knowledge. I mean, the owners tell me where we are. It's and especially with the academy thing as well, it's been a total nightmare. So you just cannot praise the fans enough and say thank you so much. Thank you for your support. We know you're desperate to be back here as well. Hopefully we can all soon, but just please all, just as I said earlier, please just stay safe, look after each other, and we hope to see you soon.
Brilliant. Thanks for your honesty.
Thank you, Dom.
Thanks, Spencer.